Hello, everybody, and welcome to Remix the Narrative. I'm so excited for tonight's conversation. As you all have seen, we've been advertising for the last week that we are really going to be diving deep into the movie American Skin. Um, it's so funny. Every week I try to figure out like what should be the topic for the next week, and literally that same day, God gives it to me. And so I actually, as soon as I saw this movie, I'm like, we got to talk about it next week. Like I can't go another week without talking about it. I'm so excited about the people on this panel. They're all very dear to me and very good friends. And I just know that we're just going to be very authentic in this conversation. So, what I would love for you who was watching, please share this. So, I see people starting to log in. Share it, share it, share it. This is a conversation amongst us, but also a conversation with you. We are going to talk about quite a few different topics that came up in this movie. I would love to hear what people who are watching live think and feel and questions you want to pose or opinions, or if you agree with something that's said, I would definitely pull it up on the screen. But again, this is about the movie American Skin, that was written by Nate Parker. And so many of us on this panel definitely left away with some different feelings, and I look forward to diving into that conversation. We're going to join right in and jump right in into introductions. So I want to have each person just kind of go around, say who you are, if you want to give a little background about what you do so we can see the variety of people on the panel, and then we will go into our conversation. Shaniqua, kick it off.
Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Shaniqua Jones. Full-time, I'm a school administrator and oversee discipline processes as a restorative justice practitioner to make sure that our Black and Brown children have every equitable and alternative opportunity available opposed to suspension and expulsion. And so I'm definitely glad to have this conversation with my fellow friend and gentleman that I'm pretty sure I will get to know soon throughout this conversation. So thank you.
All right, let's take it to Carl.
Hey everybody, my name is Carl Bray. I am a retired military, United States Air Force, ex law enforcement officer in the military. Did multiple tours, deployments, all that good stuff. Father as well, father of 7. And I am currently a truck driver, commercial truck driver, and I dabble with the youth as it pertains to basically I'm a coach. I do coaching, I do training, things of that nature. I coach 12U football out here in my community. So thanks for having me. I'm excited to get to know everybody, just like the doctor stated, and I'm ready to get this thing going. I'm ready to talk.
And let's end off with Mr. Il Gordo.
Hey everybody, Il Gordon, stage name, government name, Rashad Benson. Do a lot of things. I'm an artist, I'm a coach, I'm a teacher. I've been working with the youth now for about 20 years plus, different capacities, mentorship, counseling. Let me see what else. I'm on the BCU. No, not married yet. And I've been working with Dreamer now for the past, 8 years? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been the past 8 years. But yeah, outside of that, I'm definitely looking forward to meeting everybody, getting to know everybody's perspective. And yeah, and I'm like Carl, man, I'm ready. I'm anxious to get into it. But thanks for having me once again.
Yes. So we're going to jump in. Immediate reaction. Credits come up, movie ended. What was your immediate reaction? We really have no order. You can kind of go around.
I cried. I believe the spin for it at the end, for those who watched it, I don't know why, I just wanted to be hopeful. And I think because of everything that we've experienced, especially in this last year with, racial and civil and social unrest and COVID and all the other things, right? So I was like, man, it would be nice that when he walk out, all is forgiven. We could all walk away. And, I don't know why I was being, hopeful like that, but it was, man, and I like I can't remember your name up above me.
Carl.
Carl. Okay, so Carl's saying he's a father of 7, and I'm a mother of 5. So I watched it with my oldest girl, and we were crying. I'm like, "Come on, G, get yourself together." But yeah, I think you have to really prepare yourself for situations like this, because the several types of trauma, from historical trauma to other impacts of trauma. I think we got to be very mindful how that may affect us, and the reason why we having conversations about this subject matter now.
Yeah.
I'll go next. I kind of feel Doctor. I'm sorry. What's your name again? Doctor.
Shaniqua. We good.
Shaniqua. I kind of feel where she's coming from as well, because I too was hopeful. Like when I first watched, I'm like, oh man, like, and I was telling Jarima, it kind of reminded me like a like Injustice police brutality version of John Q. And so like when I saw it, I was hopeful. I was like, man, he didn't, you know what I'm saying? He didn't really do nothing. I mean, he did something, but y'all know what I'm saying, because I don't want to get too much of the movie away.
Right.
But it's just like, I was hopeful as well. But I appreciated the ending, because I felt like that's the more realistic ending. You know what I mean? Like if any one of us was to do that in real life, that ending was that's probably what would happen in real life. So I actually I felt the same way. I was sad because I was hopeful as well, but then it was like, here's reality. So there you go. So that's kind of how I felt.
What you feel, Carl?
Yeah. I guess I would say the same. I mean, I think everybody at the end was hopeful, but I would say overall, man, I'm gonna be real, man. I was mad. I was angry. I was probably even, a little frustrated, but like the gentleman said, it was very reality based, and I think it's just a conversation that has been going on, or a topic that's been going on in our community for a long time. When I originally watched the movie, I watched it with my family, my wife and my 2 oldest boys, one that'll be 17 this year and the other will be 14. So that was like, it was right up our alley. And I think I noticed with my son, my youngest, well, the 14-year-old, 13-year-old that'll be 14. He even had a little tear in his eye at the end. So this whole movie, while it was definitely reality based, I think for me, it's something that I could honestly see myself in that situation. With that character. You know what I mean? Like if that was to happen to my kids, I think every father, every black man, every parent would that's the way you would want to react. So
Yeah. I think for me, I was speechless. Actually, when I watched it, Rashad was actually here with me, and I was like, what just happened? And I think also the added piece of the way immediately it went to like the way it was broadcast, right? So it was like, not only was he killed, then immediately it was like, ex-Marine, he had relationships with the terrorists, just all these things. Like it was every other reason from the fact that he just didn't get justice is the reason why he did what he did. You know what I mean? It was like mental health, it was all these different excuses I felt like they tried to put on him beyond the fact of like he was just pissed. I'm like, I'm a father, my kid just got killed. And the crazy thing is you can tell he was hopeful until they made the verdict, right? So like they made the verdict, he was like, we're just hopeful for the day. It's gonna be, it's like when that hit that he was like, wow, this is actually happening to me. And then that was the way his story ended. I was actually very speechless. Like, this is crazy. Like, this is exactly what he was trying to talk to his son about. So we can go to this next scene in which it was his son and his friend Jaden. So we kind of back it up. So he walked in to his son talking to one of his good friends, Jaden, about the Black community and law enforcement. So it's actually ironic that the way his son died. They show him, learning about his rights, learning about, what it meant to, if you're unlawfully pulled over, what you should do. And his son was very indignant about, these are my rights, and him coming in and in some ways clarifying what those rights mean for the Black community. I would love to just hear what did y'all think about that part?
I think that was the key element of the entire movie, mainly because the way that this young man was so adamant about going by the book. That keep in mind, these are things that we are learning in school, that these are your rights, and you're not 3/5 of a person, you are a whole person. And so we humanize you as an individual in this world we consider America and all these great things. And for him to be, to the point where I didn't know how far this was going to go between him and his son, because you could tell that there was there was a level of anxiety from the dad part, as if for me it felt like he was telling his son, like, gee, I thought, man, what world you living in? As much as I hear you reading about this, but this is the reality, because this is for them, and then we have our own set of rules. And so I think what I even appreciated more about it, because he could have easily told his son to get off the Zoom and have a private conversation just between him and his son, but he also wanted this other Black young man to hear what was happening, so he could help him understand that what your friend is saying is exactly what's happening. And oftentimes as parents, it's one thing to be a parent and guide your child in the right direction or go according to what you believe is right. And then a lot of times we have these conversations behind closed doors. So, we have this thing like, don't go against the grain. So even with his child, who obviously was wrong, he didn't correct him, privately. He corrected him in front of his friend, who, and I think we all agree that his friend was right. But I think that was a pivotal point of the entire movie, to show that I don't care how much you being taught and how much you think, and it hurts to say it, that how much you want to be humanized and be treated, and that these set of rules work for you as well, but it don't.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now that part of the movie kind of is stung me a little bit as well. So the first thing I thought about, because I'm not a father, I thought about the conversations my father had with me when I was around that age, where the conversations were very similar. He was like, yeah, these are your rights, X, Y, and Z, but you're Black and you're a young man. And it was confusing at the time. I'm not going to lie. It was very confusing, because on one end, you're telling me as a human, I have these rights and I have the right to defend myself, et cetera, et cetera. But you're saying, because I'm Black, if I do anything remotely disrespectful to the police, I can lose my life or get arrested. So that part just kind of reminded me of the conversations I had with my dad. I think the other part in that instance that kind of stuck out to me as well was more along the lines of where I looked at it from a standpoint where Lincoln did everything to keep his son, for lack of a better term, to keep him out the hood, to experience the normal Black boy upbringing in the hood. But the irony was that because he got brought up in this quote unquote privileged area, a better school, better neighborhood, he was completely aloof to what really happens to Black boys. So that is what kind of struck me. I was like, wow, like here he is. The dad did everything right. Like, I want to get my son out the hood. I want him to have a better future. But because you did that, he now is completely disillusioned about what really happens to young Black boys and Black men. So that part kind of stuck with me in that instance. I do appreciate the fact that he did say it out in the open. He told his friend to stay on there as well. But it was, I saw at that point where the confusion was just lying between him as the father as well as him as the son. Because he was wondering, like, dang, did I fail my son by providing a better upbringing for him and not really exposing him to the ills of this world as being a person of color? Or did he just not pay attention? So for me, that part was really, really poignant to me, just going throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree. I think that part of the movie is really what tied everything together. Um, um, like I said previously, man, when I saw the young man, what was the young man? Kajani?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
Is that his name? Yeah, Kajani. I saw my son. I saw my son, and that scene, man, I thought about so many times where I might have a conversation with my boys, and you know, um, for them being young, you know, it's all about right and wrong. You know what I mean? And black. It's kind of like black and white. But the truth is in this world, there's a lot of different shades of. And
yeah,
I, man, I sat up there and I had the exact same type of conversations with my boys, and um, it's very confusing. It's very confusing because, like he said, you know, these people have we all have these rights, and we all supposed, you know, be able to live in a society where we don't have to deal with um, you know, just injustice. But the reality is not what's going on in our neighborhoods and in the cities, you know. And like I said, I had the conversation with my boys, and I told them the exact same thing. And that part of the movie, really, it really touched me. Really touched me. It made me kind of sad because America wants, as a whole, the way the young man was talking, that's the way they want this country to be perceived. But the reality is different.
mm.
It's extremely different.
And you know what, you all brought up is something that I'm sitting here wrestling with. This whole idea of parents, and even as us as mentors, we want to put our kids in best situations. You know what I mean? Like, you know, for me, Trey is my only son, and because of that, I really am invested in him. I'm invested in him in every way, and so I do pay for him. You know, he right now I'm homeschooling him, but before for his whole schooling, he had been in private schools or he had been in these different things, and it was more so because I felt like that's what's best for him. I wanted him to have those opportunities. I want him to have those outlets. He's in sports. He's involved, and I've always empowered him for his voice. Like if anyone who knows my son, he's gonna speak up. He's gonna say his mind. And the scary part though is as he gets older, it's that inch of like I don't think we failed as parents, but I'm like, man, how do I now tell him he's about to be almost 10? That yeah, all that stuff I've been telling you, you need to hush when you get hit up. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you smart and you remember all that, but I need you to be quiet. You know what I mean? Or I always tell you to speak your mind, but here I just need you to, even like he said, like I just need you to make it home. You know what I mean? And I think it's hard when we as parents, we don't want our kids to have this like slave mentality. We don't want them to feel like the sky isn't the limit. You can't go for your dreams. But then I'm also fearful because I know like Trey is one of those people that he'll check his friends. Like that's just wrong. You're not supposed to do that, And I'm like, okay, how do you explain that to a kid? And I think even people watching who are listening, like what I think that's the struggle as a parent, whoever works with kids, especially in the inner city, we all from Chicago, just understanding it's another set of rules you got to learn. I think that's the hard part for me. Like, man, I want him to experience much, but I also don't want his mouth to get him in trouble. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want his forthright to be looked as a threat just because he knows himself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's one of the things I used to struggle with when I used to teach civics. I would always I would make the Bill of Rights like the backbone of my course because I told the students it's very, very important that you guys know your rights. But one of the things I had to do, I taught them the rights as they're presented. And then I had to be very frank with them. I say, but hey, the law says this, but this part don't apply to us. Or I know it says this part don't apply to us. So it was kind of like I had to give them normal, regular Bill of Rights, and it's almost like I then have to give them the Black Bill of Rights, because the reality of it is, I say, yeah, I want you guys to be change agents. I want you to go out here and try to change the world. So it's very important that you know what rights you have legally. I say, but it's even more important what rights you have legally as a Black person, because there's a difference. So I used to struggle with that because initially I would just teach them the Bill of Rights. These are your rights. You have the right to do this. You have the right to do that. But I then would fear if they ever got into that position, got into that situation or that position, and they tried to express their rights, that it might end up worse than what it actually should be. So I understand that even though I'm not a parent, that's like the closest thing I could compare it to is when I was teaching my students. It was kind of like I have to teach all what the government says and the rights you should have, but these are your your reality rights.
Mm-hmm.
I before we go on to the next subject, I think it's very mindful too that we just can't take a one size fit all approach, because we can't base it off of age, because you have some children who have experienced life way differently than other children. So I think we have to provide, individual lessons based on where that child may be in their level of maturity. Because even with my 5 ranging from ages to 14 to 22, my 14-year-old is reminds me of how you explain your son, Jarima, and I'm having a difficult time, especially now that the social interaction has little to none, because of online learning. But she's very outspoken, and we're an outspoken family. Like we have at home, we have our own roasting sessions, and I'm not saying that that's the most perfect thing to do, but that's our way of having fun. And to be honest, that's their way of trying to roast me on the low. Like if they was mad at me about something, like this is a perfect opportunity. I'm finna get her, right?
Yeah.
And so and one of the reasons we do that, not necessarily like to the connotation of bullying, but to help them navigate how to converse with other people, especially when there's a disagreement or somebody makes you uncomfortable. What's your next step? Because what's to follow could be the determining factor between you living and you dying. And they talk, the Bible speaks about the power of the tongue and life and death. So it is, yeah. This movie, I think this is something that as parents feel like their children are prepared to watch it, even if they really aren't, but mature enough in terms of the way they think. This is something that we all need to be talking about.
And we're gonna talk about all the different people. I pulled up the mother because I think she's a very interesting character in this as well. And even a part that they mention about her is like how the media and people will in these instances use the mother. And I thought that would be interesting. I would really want to hear, like, especially what the men think, but also as I kind of sat back and I started thinking about all the different unfortunate killings that have happened, throughout the years, just the way they do play the mother, you know what I mean? Like putting the mother up front and this whole idea of like, which I love when he was in the court, in the police station, he letting her know, like, this ain't a time for peace. You know what I'm saying? Like, when everybody else kid gets shot, if they white, they ain't out here trying to kumbaya. You know what I mean? So why? Because people are frustrated. Now we got to be silent. Now we got to turn the other cheek. Why? You know what I mean? And so the way they played the mother and like, hey, I know they out here mad, but go up there and tell them, we want peace. We want things to be right. And then you could just see at the end her frustration, wanting him to come home because she understood the frustration. I think her just kind of been pulled all these different ways. Mm-hmm. What was y'all reaction to even what Omari said, his friend, like, of course they're gonna put the mom on the screen. You know what I mean? Like he already knew the playbook. What do y'all think about the way they played the mother in this movie?
Look, I'm waiting on one of y'all because if you don't say something,
I was gonna let it's Carl, right?
Yeah, Carl.
Yeah. Carl, I spoke last time, so I was like, I'm gonna let him,
I don't. I mean, I had mixed feelings about the mother. The scene, the part where I think they were outside of the courthouse, and she was trying to speak to the officer, and she was kind of turning up on him, because she was extremely frustrated. Everything. I just, man, honestly, and this is just my opinion. I think that the way she wanted to respond, or the way she was responding in that moment, for me personally, is that's how that's what I wanted to see. That's what I'm used to in my family. I know, Jeremy, you spoke about, this has happened time and time again. Every year, it's pretty much the same story that's similar to this movie, American Skin. And you see these families and you see these mothers, and they get in front of the cameraman and they have with so much pain, so much anguish, frustration. And every time they find a way to take the right route or do the right thing. And personally, so pissed off from the man, I was like, hey man, forget that peace stuff, man. Turn it up. Let's go.
Yeah.
For real. I'm just being real. you know, um, but
Man.
that's me personally.
And she was turning it up, like you said, Carl, in the house. Like when he was talking to her, even though her nephew, we could talk about him.
Yeah.
He was like, "Get up out of here talking to my aunt." You know what I mean? But she came back with him like, "Where do you have kids?" You know what I mean? Like she had that, but like you said, in front of the camera, she had to like compose it and kind of bring it in. I wish she would have showed that as well. Yep.
I was disappointed. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was disappointed. That's definitely the play that they always use. And a small part of me was hoping that she was using that like a ploy, and like when she got in front of the camera, she really turned up and was like, "Let's go, y'all, send it up." I would have really appreciated that because it to me it just made it seem like that, and it kind of echoes what the nephew was saying. Where was the peace when it was actually necessary? You see what I'm saying? It's like now y'all want the woman to come out here and try to smooth things over. And I think one of the officers, somebody said it in the movie, it was like, Omar, he was like, that's the play. If the mom ain't got no problem with it, nobody else should. And I thought about too, that made me think about why don't they ever ask the father? And it made me think like, well, maybe because a black man is always looked at as a threat. Or maybe because if a black man was to go up there, he would say, "Oh no, I'm gonna be cool, it's gonna be peaceful," and then get up there like, "Hey y'all, turn up." You see what I'm saying? So I think it was a lack of trust, with a black man, and they probably feel like what a woman might be more understanding. But I was mad because I legitimately wanted her to be like, "No, keep tearing stuff up until we get some justice." You know what I'm saying? So that was kind of my perspective on it. But that's what I expected because, like we say, every time this happens, it's very few occasions where they show the dad with the mom. But most cases that they have the mom speak to try to smooth things over.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I got my Kojic finger up, y'all. Look, this is me coming as a mom, and for people who know me, I am very peaceful. But there's also this other side. So you got Dr. Jones, then you got Kwakwa. Now, Kwakwa, that's a whole other character, right? But I think this goes back to, speaking about structural and systemic racism, even in the midst of police brutality, right? Because think about when we're talking about, food stamps and putting the man out of the house. This is the same idea that they want you to have. So we put the mother in front of the camera and make it as if this father who has basically like shared custody of this young man who's now dead. If we make it seem as if she's in this process by herself, as if the man is not even in existence in this picture, then we have this cookie cutter approach to what we see a black family should be, which is a single mom with a child. So if you notice that when she went in front of the camera, they didn't even make mention of the dad until after the fact, after they killed him. Then they played on mental illness, and they played on like he came home. They didn't talk about how he took a janitorial position so that his son could have ample opportunity to thrive in a way that he may not have had, right? So I think even when it comes to the mom, I was very disappointed because, as I said, by this being a movie, you feel like with a movie, with even if it has realistic connotations to it, that you have the opportunity to have that hope, like, hey, change the narrative, right? or remix the narrative to say like, okay, we're gonna have a better ending. He's not gonna die. He's not gonna do jail time. They finna tear the city up. You know, white America will be like, oh my God, what have we done? You know, we have sinned, but we all know that's not the case. So yeah, and I told my kids, like, I'm letting you know, and that's unfortunate because I don't want to ever lose any of my children, whether they're my birth children or children I work with. I don't want to lose any of them, and I have. That's happened to me, but I'm with that turn up. Like I even went and like, where's my concealed carry? Should I go ahead? Because I honestly I took the class and everything was like, but I've been putting it off because the way there's a heightened level of sensitivity right now. I it's like I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. But I did pull it out. Was like I need to go on and get correct.
Hey, you better go and get correct. I just came from the gun shop today. I ain't gonna even lie to you.
Real out here, and my husband, he's walking in and out because we total opposites. Where I'm like, hey guys, you know, like I'm trying to bring everybody to be peaceful. He like, shit, let's go. And I'm like, dang.
I know.
Another thing I thought about too, real quick, Jarima.
Go ahead. Yep.
I thought about how they had her try to bring peace, and he got killed anyway. She ended up losing her son and essentially her husband, ex-husband, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So it's like y'all use mom to create peace, and y'all still kill him.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
And you know what? Before you move on, that's another point I wanted to make. That, you know, and I've seen this happen where there has been some discrepancies in a marriage, and that, you know, they probably got married too young and realized like we may not be made for each other, but we got this child and we gonna love them. But they're separated. But then what brings them back together is the death of that child. Because if you see the emotions that she had in the last scene when he was at the police station, it was like, I want you to come home to me. She didn't say I want you to, you know, go to your home. She's like, I want you to come home to me. And I think that was just another layer of like, damn. Right?
Yeah. So
Ooh.
this next part, I thought, so I want to be totally transparent. I thought of Carl. And the reason I thought of Carl, because I've known Carl quite a long time, and like he already shared in the beginning, he has a background of the military, right? And when I thought of the character Lincoln, and even when I didn't put his mom on here, but she was the one that made known in the documentary, like he served, you know what I mean? He's done this, and this is what his country is doing to him. You know what I mean? Like, and he was even trying to, you know, with his mom, like, Mom, it's cool. She's like, no, like that needs to be said in this documentary. Like, you lost your son, the police did this, and you literally went overseas for their lives, and they took your son's life. You know what I mean? And it made me think about that pull that Lincoln probably was having. Like, we definitely talk a lot about him in the police station, but I think just his pull of like, man, I've served this country that I know doesn't serve me. You know what I mean? Like, I've done all this for this country, and I think all of that was bent up. Like, even when he was talking to the officers, I think it was just like this, how dare you try to make me look and feel stupid? You know what I mean? Like I know what you're thinking. Even his, they already knew how to go in there and take over. Like, this is what we do. This is what we were trained to do. You know what I mean? Like, as the officers talk about what he was trying to do, this is what they were trying to do. That's why they were able to come in there legit. It wasn't like no bang. They had their equipment. They was ready. You know what I mean? So he's like, look, the American trained me how to take over this police station. Like, I know what to do. Like, I already know who's trying to move. But even the frustration in that of like, man, I don't think it didn't seem like a part of regret. But it's like, man, y'all just spit in my face. You know what I'm saying? Even the fact that he came back and he working as a janitor. You know what I mean? Just so he can get his son in school. Like, I would just love to kick it off with Carl, but everyone else to kick in. Like, what do you think that pull was between him being of the military and understanding that is who, killed your son?
Well, it's funny you say that, Remo, because basically throughout the whole movie, I did see myself, a lot of myself in Lincoln. Like you said, veteran, ex-military, was also a cop for a lot of that time while I served in the military. So I have a unique perspective where I understand both sides. And I was just real frustrated and angry. And I'm looking at law enforcement. For myself, um, that's part of the reason why I got out. Because when I was in, I saw so many things that I just didn't feel was right or justified. Um, and you're 100% right. There's a lot of veterans out here, a lot of ex-military. You come back to this country and you got to struggle and fight just to get seen at the VA, to get with health care. Myself personally, I've been diagnosed. I have PTSD, um, um, and it takes a lot just for them to, people like myself, to get their, disability ratings and things like that. But I do, I pass it off. It's something that I want to say as well about the law enforcement side of the house. Man, the type of person, me personally, I'm just like Lincoln. Man, I don't actually, I don't like law enforcement. I don't agree with law enforcement, and I have a lot of friends who are actual cops, either still in the military or civilian, and um, it's just the things that are done. You know, uh, a lot. For example, a lot of times in my training, we were taught basically, what you write on your report is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it is, straight up. You got to make sure that your paperwork matches policy and procedure, but that may not necessarily be what happened when you were out on whatever, whether you responding to a domestic altercation or you on a traffic stop, or whatever, so it's just so unfortunate, very unfortunate what happened, but I can definitely relate to Lincoln and everything that it's like you said, the mother stated that he was dealing with and going through, because I went through this exact same thing and I'm dealing with the exact same things right now to this day.
I even shared that this basically brings up a great point. And I think Gordo, how tell I'm good. Okay. So like this ethical dilemma of doing what is right versus what is best. And so here he is, he come home and he's very humble about the process, while mom is like, tell him what's going, tell him the truth, tell him all, right? And him being humble about the process. I don't believe it was, just because my brother was in the military, I don't believe it was a matter of him being humble because he doesn't care or he's just trying to move forward. I think it was more of a matter of the hurt and the trauma that's associated to it. And a lot of times, especially in the Black community, that goes back to the conversation we had a week or two ago, Jarima, that, if you keep yourself busy and focus on what's ahead and not really focus on what put you in this place in the first place, we think that we can move beyond that and just continue to do and, be productive. But what happens is you end up exploding. And in this particular situation, his explosion came from the loss of his son. And if we think about it, oftentimes we see how people get the phone call like your child has died. You may not have the details in terms of how your child either died or was killed, but you weren't there. And I think for him, that's just another level of trauma, because he went and served the country and saw these type of, he saw death firsthand. So to see his son go through the same process in what you consider your own home and your own community, I think that probably just, made it even worse. I mean, losing someone, period, is not good at all, but the manner in which he lost him, that fight, like, put your cell phone away, and to keep replaying it, because I kept replaying that in my mind, even when the movie was over, and how all of us, this can be life and death sometimes. And not trying to justify it, but if you already know the type of world we live in, and just watching how he like, hey, I'm reaching. Is it okay? I'm reaching for my insurance card. Hey, hi, yes, sir, no, sir. And you know, all the mannerisms. It's like no matter what you do. And you know, we seen it all because I used to be the one like, what you pulling me over for? You know, like I go from 0 to 10 real quick, and now here I am in lockup talking about, Mama, can you come get the kids? Pound.
Right.
I say all that to say that, you know, for him to serve the country, it was a slap to the face. And I know we're gonna talk about, I want to call him Ghost because that's all I know him as at this point. But the fact that he like just had his last treatment, he coughing up blood, but he like, B, I ride, die, cry for you.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that speaks volumes. Because I don't know how many people it sound good. Like, yeah, you know, I'm 10 toes down till it's time to be 10 toes down. You're like, man, I didn't think it was really gonna happen. You know, like, wow.
We really doing this?
I thought we was playing. I didn't think he was for real.
Hello.
I think.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Go ahead.
I think the part that that stuck with me the most was that just throughout history, as Black men especially, we have to be presented in the most non-threatening manner. We are presented in this most, you know, like a genial way. You know what I mean? And I think about like what you were just saying, Shaniqua, that even when they pulled him over, yes, sir, I'm speaking with a soft tone. My hands are up. I'm not yelling. I'm being as calm and cool as possible to show you that I'm not a threat.
Mm-hmm.
But this is still the part that bothered me the most. And granted, I'm not a police officer. I've never been a police officer. I cannot speak on their training. But I think the part that bothered me was that it's hard for me to understand how can you protect someone that you are afraid of. And even when we present ourselves in the most non-threatening way, because the officer said so, I was afraid. Afraid of what?
Yep.
So that's the part that kind of stung to me. The father telling him, hey, he just has a phone. He's a 14-year-old boy. He's telling him everything that's not threatening. But the officer's response was, well, I was afraid. So I think that for me, that's what kind of stung the most. Because it's like, if you are afraid to interact with the people, why are you an officer? You see what I'm saying? Like I said, I got friends that's police officers as well and all of that. So it's like I tread lightly with that because I have friends, family members that also are, you know, officers. But I think about that though because my people that I know, I've never seen that from them. Granted, I've never been out doing the work with them, but just knowing them, they don't show that element. But it made me think about that. It's like it doesn't matter how nice we present ourselves, how safe that we're trying to show that we really are, that if we make one slight move or if we try to do something that they don't think is cool, we instantly become a threat. So I think in that instant, in that moment when they got pulled over, that's what really kind of it touched me. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like ain't no right answer. Ain't no right answer. So that's what bothered me.
And it's like, how do you train someone to not be scared of somebody? You know what I'm saying? And I think I don't want to gloss over that because even now we'll talk about that. Like that's the problem with policing in our neighborhood is that it isn't neighborhood policing. Like you just coming into my neighborhood, you don't know me, you don't know the neighbors, you don't know anything, and you scared of me. Like you're coming into my neighborhood scared. But if you knew me, you would know. In this case, that's just little Kajani down the block. You know what I'm saying? Like, what you know, he that's how he is. Or you know that this person ain't a threat. All you gotta do is get so and so, they'll come and calm them down. You know, you don't have that, you know, community policing. And they talk a lot about how they're trying to, you know, in here in Chicago, how they're trying to like reform that and you know, but I think at the end of the day, what I've seen is not the remedy. The remedy isn't you take a field trip through Lawndale. You, you know, come and speak at the schools in Inglewood, or you become a buddy at Roseland. You know what I mean? Like that's not how you become a community police officer. And I think that the hard part, even the officer who was his partner, was like, "See, everything I say, I'm a racist." You know, everything. It's like. You don't even see it. Like it took all that to happen for him and his partner to both see. Like
damn.
Like man, like we don't. You know what I mean? Like You know,
Yeah.
and then he's using all the things. We got a black captain. We, you know,
Right.
you know,
Now that part, that's always
Oh man,
right? And
that
that's
was a
why
good part.
I love the jury, okay? Because they got him so
Yeah,
correct.
inmates.
Oh, what
the inmates. But
that
hold on, real quick, the one with the black eye, I knew from the time he came out, said, "Fam finna get with the, he finna get shit cracking. But he ain't going. This is
He
gonna
ain't
be."
say nothing.
He like say less.
Look, he really didn't say one thing until he stole on dude.
He ain't say nothing at all. But when my guy right here, he was talking about being pulled over. Like, there was one time when I was stationed in California. I actually got pulled over on a high risk traffic stop. Was coming from the club. It was a shooting. Everybody scattered. Everybody jumped in their car, and they taking off. And I jumped in mine, and I took off too. And I mean, I was driving, I was speeding pretty much, and I got pulled over. About 3 cop cars, about 4 police officers with their guns drawn down on me, and he taps on the window. Obviously, I got my hands on the steering wheel. I'm not moving my hands. My hands going nowhere. So he taps on the steering wheel. I mean, I'm sorry, on the windshield, the window, and tells me to roll down the window. So you got to go through that process, like he said. You got to reiterate everything that they're saying. Okay, you want me to roll this window down? You got to play. It's like you got to dumb yourself down. Yeah. So they're getting frustrated with me because I'm reiterating what they're saying, but I'm reiterating it because I want you to know that I heard you, I understand, and now this is what I'm going to do. So I roll the window down, and officer to my right on the passenger side, 2 officers, they guns on me, and another on my left on the driver's side, and he goes, "Hey man, why are you speeding? What's going on?" I said, "Officer, they shooting. I don't know if you heard.
you ain't get the
I don't know if you got the call, sir." I said, "But they're shooting. That's why I'm speeding." And the officer that was talking to me, he didn't get it. He was ready to keep going. But his partner on the other side, I heard him go, it's not him. And that officer was black. The officer that was talking to me, and I'm not saying it was a racial thing, but the officer that was talking to me was white. So obviously the black cop understood, you know what I mean? My demeanor and where I was coming from, my frustration. I was nervous, scared. I got 3 guns drawn on me. You know what I mean? But so it just goes to show, like you said, Jarima. I don't have all the solutions for what's going on in our community as it pertains to law enforcement. I know that there's a huge issue, but one of the things that would definitely help is if you got cops that live in those communities, that's working in those communities. Like, there's already preconceived notions from a white officer that's coming in an inner city neighborhood because all their life they've been watching TV. They've been seeing things, seeing people look like you and I portrayed a certain way. So whether they realize it or not, you're going to think a certain way when you have to encounter a person that looks like myself, this brother right here. So that scene where the inmates and man, I forget the name. I don't know if they ever said the name, but that one inmate I really liked was the Muslim guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, when he broke that down in that thing and explained that, I think he said something. I could be wrong, but I think he said something to the effect of his response to the officer was, he said something like that's. He said, "What you're saying and what you're comparing is like, oh, I have a wife, So I'm not. What did he say?
I'm not. I think I'm not.
So I can't be sexist just because
Yeah, I'm not a sexist because we have a black, captain. So I mean, there you have it.
Yeah. I like the other homie. I don't know his name either, but y'all know what I'm talking about. The other homie inmate that was talking just as much as the Muslim brother. Because he asked him, he was like, "Man, wait, you want me to be on a jury about these cops, and you expect for me to be 100?" And what I liked was that he kept it real. He said, "Man, I'll try." He's like, "But you gotta understand everything." He's like, "Do you know what these cops did to me? And you want me to be unbiased?" But I like the fact that I feel like that he was, despite everything that he said might have happened with him and what he's seen the cops do to people. I think that even in that instance, I really think that the convicts, the inmates that played the jury, I think they were more unbiased than the regular juries that we actually have.
Yeah.
To be honest, and I really appreciated the part when the officer was like, "Wait a minute, none of my peers are on that jury." Good.
You said now you know how we feel.
Exactly.
We haven't got our peers either.
I think, and I'm glad you mentioned that because that's one of the reasons why I push for our right to vote, because I even have even my husband and some of my children that are of age to vote. Like, man, I ain't on none of that. No, I need you to be, because not just because of this one piece of instant gratification to go to the polls, but when it's time for us to be represented in juries, we're not represented because we're not registered to vote. So how can we change the narrative when it's time to make decisions based on the people who look like us, if you're not going to be take that civic duty and register to vote? So I think that's another piece that's very important as well. I know we running close on time, but even outside the jury, I think the uncle's part, remember he got shot, I think his part was even very important, because he said, "Because of you, I live."
Yeah.
And mind you, this is an older gentleman. I think that speaks volumes, because oftentimes we don't see men have those type of interactions where, like, man, I'm older than you, but I look up to you, when, usually you should be looking up to me, because that's what society says. So I was able to live. So even if I die from this gunshot wound, boo, we good. I lived a good life because you stood up for something, and I supported that. And I think that was a pivotal moment for me.
Yeah. Before we, like you said, we're coming close towards the end, but I wanted to bring this character up.
This guy.
Because we talked a lot about, like, black and white. We talked about the officers, but he had him here as a very look at Carl, like, I don't even
like this dude.
I think he brought him up as an important part, because I believe him and his interaction with the juror show like classes, right? So he was, he was looking at him like, he was what he was trying to leave. You know what I mean? Like, when he was, that's what I took from it. Because when he was, being all high and mighty, we didn't know what he was saying. I don't know Spanish like that.
I wish they would have translated.
Man.
But if I could translate, I think he was saying, dude, you are not all that. You are just like us. You just got that badge. Act like you understand where we coming from. Because he was just all like, doing this job. He's like, dude, you a minority too. You a minority too. In his mind, he was like, you represent what I don't want them to look at me as. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And he kept trying to tell him, I think he was telling him, like, but you are me. I don't care if you got that badge on. You still are us. And you can make it seem like I'm making such a shame for our culture, but you ashamed. He was saying, like, I'm ashamed of you. Because now you got this badge and you're using it in the way that we needed you to, like we talk about being the community police. I need you to be my advocate. But you in here villainizing me, and we the same. We come from the same hood. You know what I mean? So I would love us to talk about this officer as we get towards like what we want people to walk away with.
I'll try to be quick. I love a good antagonist. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's just, he's character typed as that anyway. But I liked his character in the movie because, like I said, I'm not a police officer, but I feel like that might be the typical thoughts of some police officers. You see what I'm saying? Yep. Where they're like, man, slavery was happening. Get over it. It's like y'all making an excuse. Like he remind me of the officer that legit just sees black and white. You know what I mean? Where nope, Black people, y'all do these things, so this is how we have to respond. These people, they do these type of things, so this how we have to respond. And I think that even though he was frustrating to listen to and even frustrating to watch, but I think that was the point, because you have a lot of people in positions or people in power where they have that similar mentality. So I actually like this character, even though he's very frustrating and annoying. I liked it because it brought an element of realness to it. Because if every officer in there was like, "Oh, okay, no, we get that, we understand what you're saying," that wasn't been real to me. So the fact that he always had to push back and he was trying to go fighting, and what I really saw, I felt like he was really having a battle with what he thought he knew, what he knew, what he was taught.
Yep.
Okay, that's it. That's all I gotta say.
Piggyback off that, and I'm only gonna say this that really showed an internal battle that he was having with himself, and that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Funny. All I'm gonna say is, he reminded me of when we talk about having a seat at the table. So I think what you're saying, Shaniqua, about us voting and getting our presence, about what we should do when we're in those spaces. You know what I mean? And I think in a lot of times, even as we're talking about law enforcement, because that was like the big thing, but I think Nate Parker was really trying to show the whole spectrum of, it's not even just the police force, it's the media, it's our neighborhoods, it's like, people don't know how to react, so we just gonna tear stuff up. He showed everything. He showed, I think we're going to dive deeper, but this college student who was like kind of, we in some ways, been pulled out of this situation, but now he's seeing everything aerial view. So when it was time for him to make that verdict, he like, I'm actually just like, what is going on?
Yeah.
He probably had this vision of the world, but because of this incident, now his whole mind is blown. He's like, I just don't know. Like, I thought everything I knew is now, gone away. So this officer represents to me like a seat at the table. And a lot of times we get frustrated, even in education, people making policies and decisions for our kids. We're like, do you even know? Did you even think about that when you made that decision? Like, we even talk about now with CPS. I ain't gonna just start no riot, but that's what people feeling like. Don't you got kids? But you want me to go into this building with these kids? Like, certain things are just common sense. Certain things are just like, you just have respect for people. Certain things are like, look, yeah, this might work on the north side, but what about these kids that also got to go to live in this area? Just whole picture. But like you said, if you come in there with a black and white, like, well, you know what? He should have had his insurance card. Should have been expired. Like, well, they should have got a bus card. I don't know. They should get some better shoes. I don't know. It's like this very matter of fact response. And I think that's what he represented. And like you said, it was like that conflict towards the end.
Yeah. I just saw the character, and then it was like you said, the dude did a good job, because I was thoroughly frustrated and annoyed.
I like him.
I hated him. I hated him. So he definitely did his job. He did his. But I think that the dude was lost. I know we don't got a lot of time, but I think that he was at a place and a point where he didn't necessarily realize, like, okay, yeah, you're a cop, yeah, you have made it, quote unquote, but guess what? If you're not in that uniform and you don't have that badge on, and you encounter another law enforcement, they're not gonna know that you're a cop. They're gonna treat you just like they would treat that brother, that inmate, that Hispanic inmate, and that's what I took. Because like I said, like you said, I can't speak Spanish. I don't know what he said, but that's what I think he did. LeBron James just had his home vandalized in California about a year two ago, and he's worth $1 million. So success doesn't equate to, oh, well, I don't have to deal with injustice anymore. You just like us.
Yep.
Yep. And just thinking, I always love to do a closing remark, because there's so many things we can take away from this. But what do you think, and what would you hope people? So if you have not watched, let me just say this: American Skin is not sponsoring this, but I would love to sponsor it, because this is an amazing movie. I'm actually kind of geek. Nate Parker liked this post on Instagram. I was like, what? Stop playing. But I just want to just encourage you, if you have not seen it, you know how you have certain movies, and I had to, I still have not seen the one that Ava made. What's the name of that movie? The one about it documented with them in their time in jail, like the boys and
When They See Us.
When They See Us.
You ever seen that yet?
No. And I'm gonna tell you why. And I'm gonna tell you why.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm gonna tell you why. Not because I believe that it's a story that shouldn't be told, but kind of back to what Carl said, I think it's gonna trigger some trauma for me. Cause I have a lot of things when it comes to like students we've lost, you know what I mean? And I have a lot of trauma just growing up in the neighborhoods, my family. And so certain things, I just know what I can handle. You know what I mean? So part of me is like, I don't know if I can handle it. But this movie, I believe it had parts, of course, it's kind of like, but it's a necessary conversation. I think he was very, very, very wonderfully wrote and very wonderful portrayed. Like you said, he cast, I mean, we didn't even talk about every juror. I mean, every person had a very pivotal role. The white jurors, the girl who was like, I'm just here to buy a ticket. Everybody had a very
the good girl.
They had everybody in it, and so I would just say if you haven't seen it, see it, watch it, and I think it's a necessary conversation. But what would you want people to walk away with from seeing this and even from this conversation about ways we can move forward?
I know we didn't touch on this young man, but Jordan King, that young man played that role, and this may not even be necessarily associated to the movie in its totality, but the power of education, because this was a school assignment. He walked in wanting to know more and not knowing that it was going to pan out the way that it did and expose him to something that he'd never experienced before. And so to see that part at the very end when they were making their decision and the tears that he shed, I felt like those was real tears. Those wasn't like, hey, cut the tears. I think that was what he authentically felt in that moment. I could be wrong, but I definitely want us to, for me, I'm a big thought leader when it comes to education. And so that moment when you had this young man had this opportunity, and for him to trust the father to say, you know what, I'm gonna come along with you, not knowing that it was going to the way that all of this happened. But education is a weapon. A powerful weapon, and I think we need to take hold of that. And it may not be for everyone, and education come in many different forms, but there's lessons to be learned in everything you do.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Mm.
I'm gonna say this first, and I think the first thing I thought after I finished watching the movie was he should have shot the cop. That's how I felt. Like that was like my biggest takeaway. But it also led me to just thinking about the movie as a whole. I think my biggest thing is that I feel like, especially as people of color, and especially black men, there will never be an easy solution to this problem. But I think the thing that will cause failure if we stop trying to find a solution. Because there's no easy answer to it. I don't want to get on my, go too deep, but it's like, if we really want to be technical, this still is kind of stemming from slavery with overseers and everything else. So it's just kind of like, this is a deeply rooted issue where I feel like the closest thing we can get to as far as a solution is like what you guys were saying is more community and cultural understandings. Yeah. I think that could prevent a lot of the mishaps that we do have with law enforcement if they understand the communities and the culture of those communities that they serve a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what I would suggest people see, what I took away from it was, man, just talk to these kids, man, to your children. We live in a world where, like Shaniqua, is it Shaniqua? I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That everybody's always in this, and it's all day. This is like your lifeline. And sometimes as a parent, you can miss some things, because you so caught up in work and what you got to do and what's going on here, and okay, I got to do this, I got to do that. Man, sit down, talk to your kids, get it lives, get those. Um, don't worry about if they like you or not. Try to be their best friend. Talk to your kids. Talk to them about what's really going on. Don't try to sugarcoat it. Don't try to hide it. Because they need to know. They need to know. It just might be difference between like she said, life and death. You know.
I agree. I agree. You all, this has been so beautiful.
We need a part 2.
Girls, and they're like, I got all kind of things we can talk about. Jesus Christ.
I have a whole note section over here, like, dang.
But what I can also say, which I would say, I think it is so important that whatever platform and whatever way we work in this world, like whether it's education, coaching, parents, big brother, sister, like we have a responsibility. And I think that I'm grateful, like this movie was made. I'm also grateful that, we have each other and we can be able to support each other's efforts. But I think for me, what it really showed me is that we have to be willing to really work together as a village. Like I'm always talking about that. I think that's a major thing. They didn't really highlight the community so much and like that part, but I think that matters. I think it matters the relationships these kids had, back to what Carl said. I think that they need to be able to have those kind of conversations. Like, I love the fact that Dad wasn't just like, look, I'm your dad, be quiet, don't talk to the police. But they need to be able to have dialogue. They need to be able to be like, but, so you telling me not to be a man? Like they need to be able to have a conversation and not be looked as being defiant. And know that that's what we raised our kids to be. And I think it's important that they still have identity of themselves, but that we do have real conversations with them. So thank you all. Thank you all who've been watching. People in the chat, like, this is just a great movie, great discussion. I'm gonna just end with this last comment someone just said. We are not even willing to die to protect our own and our communities. We are the change, but no one is willing to put it on the line. So that's a pretty mouthful comment, right?
That's a whole nother discussion.
That's a whole other discussion.
You see, I started doing this like, whoa, let me
Okay.
Yeah, Remy, you got to do a part 2.
We're gonna do a part 2. We're gonna do a part 2. What y'all doing next Tuesday?
Hey, count me in.
I'm down.
Absolutely.
All right, we're gonna do a part 2, y'all. But thank you all for listening to part 1. And we will see y'all very soon. Take care.
All right. Take care, everyone.